Morning guys, welcome to TRW Pizza. This video should be quite interesting for some of you, I think. It's basically going to summarize visually my journey over the past, say, 7-8 months, from when I knew nothing about making pizzas at all, to now to a point where I would say I can make a pretty respectable Napolitana-style pizza at home. I'm going to talk about some of the tools and approaches that I use during that period and how that's evolved. And also, interestingly, today is the day which I'm going to move my olive oil from dispensing it from this food-grade plastic dispenser to this proper cruet. The reason why I think that's interesting and kind of symbolic is that basically I didn't even know what a cruet was a couple of months ago. And that's the kind of things that happen when you start becoming obsessed about making pizza. You start to discover things which you didn't even know existed, and then suddenly they become very important to you. So in goes the olive oil, a little bit symbolic for me. And yeah, on with the video. I hope you enjoy it, and please drop a like, subscribe, because there'll be a lot more of this kind of pizza content coming on a regular basis. Take care. So on with the video. To set the scene, I had zero experience making pizza. Now I can make pizzas like this is one of my own. I made it about a month ago, Napolitana style, in my Ooni Koda 16. It, I would say I've been making consistently good pizzas now for the past 3 months or so, and it took me about 3 to 4 months to get to that stage. There's been an evolution of the tools I've used. Here you can see the Infra Red Thermometer from the Ooni, also some really good quality sea salt and things like that. It's really important to understand that when you start out, you don't need those things. You start out very basic. This is literally my first ever pizza cooking session. It was on the 16th of May 2021. So it's what's lucky about this from my perspective is that I've always had a kind of borderline OCD with anything I get interested in. That means that if I get passionate about something like pizza making, I'll take photographs, I'll record myself doing it, because I'm interested in learning and continual improvement. So this is literally the first time I made it on a pizza stone in my oven at home. The pizza stone I didn't own. It was actually from a friend. We'd been for lunch, and they mentioned that they'd made their own pizza. They showed me a book that came with the stone. I don't actually remember what stone it was, unfortunately. I'll try and dig that out. And it piqued my interest. They lent me the stone, and a couple of days later I made my first pizza. This was it. And you can see how tentative I am with the dough. You can see that the dough is a very strange shape. I think I was using the recipe for the dough, which was with the book from the pizza stone. It wasn't ideal. It definitely wasn't the dough recipe I used today. However, it made something which worked. As you will get to know if you don't make pizza already, when you make pizza on a pizza stone in the oven, rather than having your own specialist pizza oven like an Outi or an Outi or a Gozney, basically you need to use a slightly different approach with the dough. But it's not too complicated once you do some practice. And fundamentally, the dough that I'm using here, I believe, had quite a lot of honey in it and was a very low hydration. What that means is that there was a high ratio of flour to water, meaning it's easier to work with, and there was quite a lot of yeast in there too. You can also see here I'm taking the sauce out of a pan, which is because I was cooking my sauce. I was making the sauce with some herbs and some garlic, something I do not do now at all. Here I've got some good quality Parmesan, grating it straight on, again, something that I don't think is the best way of doing it these days. I pre-grate my cheeses and things before I make the pizza. But as I say, you'll see these things change over this video in my approaches. What I would say is that there's a consistent theme with all the pizzas I made, which is that, in fact, even though I say it myself, they all tasted good. And I think that's one of the great things about pizza making. Aesthetically, they can leave much to be desired for a long, long time. Maybe weeks and months in, you're still making pizzas that don't look like a good quality pizza. They're not round, they're not launching properly, they're undercooked, they're overcooked, but they will have a good taste to them, and the family will like them, and that kind of eggs you on to improve, get better, and enhance your technique and your tools that you're using. That was definitely the case for me. The first pizza I made, you'll see it shortly, it was really good, it was really tasty. And I thought to myself, you know what, I can do better, and that's the mission I set myself. I'll also say that I've found pizza making an incredibly cathartic process. It helps with, stressful times or anxiety or, feeling of things aren't going quite right. You've always got your pizza making in your life, and you can just basically have it as your special time to own something with a passion. You'll see there I didn't have a peel. I'm launching my pizza from an upturned baking tray, pouring way too much olive oil onto the top, straight out the bottle. Again, you'll see that over time I changed from using a bottle for the olive oil to using a purpose-made kitchen container onto the cruet, which I introduced at the start of this video. So there is pizza number 1. I think for a first attempt it's not bad. Shape is pretty shocking, but you can see, you can tell it's a pizza. It was very flat. I didn't even know what kind of pizza I was trying to make. I didn't know if I was trying to make a Napolitana or New York style pie, something like that, but ultimately it was a kind of generic pizza and it worked okay. This is a few days later. I am starting to get a little bit more prepared. I'm starting to get my dashboard of ingredients ready before I make the pizza. You can see I'm still cooking the sauce there, and the sauce is looking okay. The pizza's fairly round on the peel there. I'm adding the cheese. I didn't show the dough making or the dough stretching process on this one, but I was still just highly tentative, didn't really know what I was doing. As everyone will tell you who's made a few pizzas, the first few times is basically just a kind of exploration. Don't have high expectations, but practice, 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 and rather quickly you get to a point where you have some decent confidence to do that. So I'm still cooking these pizzas on my friend's pizza stone, which I lent from them. Too much olive oil on the top. You can see I went to launch it, then realized I hadn't put the olive oil in there. Here I'm filming the pizza inside the oven. I remember at this point I was I was loading the pizza oven up with full temperature for about an hour, literally on max, and then I was cooking it for 4 minutes in the oven. There, the shape's all right actually. You noticed I had a peel for the first time. I bought a wooden peel, which I still use to this day. Bit of a floppy pizza, but I remember that one. It tasted good. The family really dug it. There's another one with mushroom. The mushroom is not cooked to the degree I'd like. It's not a very aesthetically pleasing pizza, but again, it tasted good. I think this is the time when I first started to realize delve into the fact that there was more than one type of generic pizza to make. And the type of pizza that was really reaching out to me and interesting me was the Napolitana style. So you can see I'm starting to learn about getting that air from the inside of the pizza dough out to the pockets, out to the crust. Over flouring it a bit, but certainly my technique is starting to look better. This was, looking at the dates, this was about 2 weeks into my pizza making. And bear in mind, I've been doing at least 2 batches of pizzas every week. So let's say at this point I had made 10 pizzas in about 4 or 5 batches. So I'm quite tentatively stretching it there, just passing it to and from my hands, giving it a little bit of a stretch, but obviously not overly confident. That pizza peel sitting in the back there, Still use it, serve me pretty well, although ideally I will have the metal uni one, that's what I'm after, or the GI metal one, if I can get hold of that as well. The wooden ones serve me fine though, to be totally honest. I just put a little bit of semolina flour on it, and it launches very smooth. At this point, I was taking most of my guidance of making pizza from basically from the internet, a few random websites, if you Google pizza dough recipe, things like that. But I was starting to pick up that there was some good specific books on this and recipes for people who cook pizzas at home that were a little bit more refined, encouraged use of honey in the dough to allow them to kind of proof a bit more and get a little bit more gluten developed, make them a little bit more likely to have a good rise within the oven at home, which obviously doesn't have the higher temperature of a proper pizza oven or an Ooni or a Gozney or a Outi pizza oven. And yeah, it's always clear when you've made a pizza in a home oven on a pizza stone. You can see it visually, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the taste isn't great. I have made some fantastic tasting pizzas, even though I say it myself, in the home oven on a stone. Here goes the application of the sauce. The sauce I've cooked again. I still haven't got out of that habit of pre-cooking sauce and adding all kinds of things to it. I'll keep on mentioning that throughout this video, I'm sure, because I think it's so important personally. I mean, everyone has their own preferences, but I would never ever cook a sauce again for pizza. It's completely unnecessary. I just use my Outi cherry tomatoes. I add some fine Italian sea salt and blend it up very quickly, maybe 10 seconds, 3 or 4 blasts of the blender, or the kind of stick processor, and it's ready to go. Don't let it get too watery, because that means it'll kind of get a bit soggy on your pizza. And it's just so easy, and it tastes the best. If you cook it, you take the tang out of it, in my opinion. Never add herbs, that's when the basil goes on afterwards. Never add sugar, you don't want a sweet sauce. Don't need to add the garlic. And yeah, this is some cheese going on out of the package, nothing wrong with that when you don't have access to specific ingredients. I do obviously try and get dry mozzarella when possible and cut it up myself, but sometimes it's not available, and that really doesn't matter. Don't let non-access to fine quality ingredients stop you from making pizza. And I think this was one of the times when I realized, you know what, I could get into this pretty seriously. This was a delicious pizza. You can see that cheese beautifully cooked. Yes, it's undercooked. First thing I now notice. At the time I didn't, because I didn't have the experience, but it felt crunchy, soft on the inside. In come the family to have a look, because obviously they're excited because they love pizza too. A little bit oily on top. I put too much olive oil on. I hadn't applied the basil in a very nicely aesthetic way. I'm cutting it with a knife because I didn't have a pizza cutter. Undercooked, but absolutely delicious. Part of the evolution. You have to make pizzas which aren't perfect in order to get to the point of making really good quality pizza. And yeah, this was definitely one of those ones where it looked the part, it felt the part, it was kind of getting a bit Napolitana stylish. And yeah, I think this was the point at which I was properly hooked on making my own pizzas at home. And it's fair to say, if you have family, they will dig it if you become good at making pizza. It's hard to find someone who honestly doesn't like pizza. Yes, there might be preferences. They might like vegetarian pizza, gluten-free pizza, different types. But most people will like some kind of pizza with their specific requirements. and it's just it's a great skill to have. I have friends coming around on a regular basis now and make pizza for people who just want something from work, bring in for them as a gift, and it's just a really nice, wholesome thing to do. This pizza got absolutely demolished very quickly. Love a good pepperoni with it, and suffice to say, as I say, this was the point in which I knew I was going to be taking this quite seriously. Okay, so this was, I put a little bit more of the footage of this batch in because I feel, this is about 2 months in. So let's say I had done 10, 15 batches of pizza. Let's say on average, that means I'd made about 60 pizzas in total, maybe more. And I'd also been studying in great detail now the approach to making the dough, the approach to manipulating the dough and making sure that you're getting a good rise from it. What's interesting, what I've only relatively recently learned is that, from this point, for many, many months, I was actually putting too much yeast in my dough recipe. That bubble there, developing, is a kind of indication that it was basically developed too much, overly proofed, getting very active, and had too much air in it. I was putting in the region of maybe 2 teaspoons of yeast, active dry yeast, into my dough mixture for say 6 pizzas, which I now know is unnecessary. You don't need more than about 0.5 gram, 3/4 gram of active dry yeast for that kind of amount. So yeah, they were blowing up a bit. Still making great pizza, but unnecessary. Making the dough a little bit too, not brittle, a little bit too stretchy. Wasn't quite the consistency that I wanted. I didn't know what was wrong for a long time. Again, part of the great cathartic process of learning how to do something well. You get things wrong for a long time, then one day something clicks. Here I'm doing a fair job of manipulating the dough, getting it into a decent shape. But I must say, it's still not my strength. I still don't feel massively confident every time I start to shape a pizza. Certainly getting reasonably good, but not great. There's a obvious mistake I am making right now. Not obvious, actually. Only obvious because I know. I've put the peel upside down, and I think this is the one where I put the pizza on the peel upside down and it doesn't launch well as a result. Let's see if that's the case. I have hours and hours of footage of this kind of stuff. It's the kind of person I am. Just like to maintain video diaries of things like this. So yeah, I do get mixed up with everything. Let's see if I do this properly. I'm kind of manhandling the pizza a bit too much in this one. Not ideal. You want to be kind of quite quickly in and out with the pizza. Oh, you know what? The pizza peel is actually the right way around. The pizza's a good shape, good size. That peel, I believe, is about 14 inches across. And yeah, it's not ideal. The way I should be pinching the dough a little bit more rather than pulling it and stretching it, but yeah, it looks okay. Happy with this. Again, still using cooked sauce. Unnecessary, a waste of precious time and effort, and honestly doesn't taste as good. Adding it a bit gingerly as well. When you watch a professional pizza chef, they apply it in the center of the pizza with a large flat spoon and then just spread from the inside out in a circular motion and get a lovely, consistent, flat application of that sauce. This isn't that. But not dreadful. On goes the pre-grated Parmesan. There's always a potential to add a bit too much Parmesan. That was about right, actually, that's okay, in my opinion. On goes the packaged mozzarella. The reason why people say that packaged mozzarella isn't so good, pre-shredded, is basically they put caking agents in it to stop it from getting stuck together, and those caking agents, are basically preservatives. It means you're not getting the real kind of pure, unmolested version of the cheese. Makes sense to me. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand exactly what that caking agent is, but it makes sense if you can get things in their purest form. That's ideal. But if you don't have access to good quality dry mozzarella that you can cut yourself, it's not an awful option to use some pre-grated shop-bought mozzarella. On goes some fresh buffalo mozzarella. This is a real game changer when you start adding this. I hadn't there. You can see it was swimming in its own juice. What I should have done is just basically let it sit in a sieve, in a fine sieve, for a little bit of time so that it really dries itself out. Otherwise, it risks puddling up on the pizza and getting a little bit kind of wet. But again, like no showstopper, not a massive disaster. And fundamentally, I would say that when you start adding that kind of proper Italian buffalo mozzarella, you start making seriously tasty pizza. Okay, so you'll see a few kind of milestones in this video about important kit or products I bought. And I went out and bought this pizza stone of my own. I gave my friends back, very thankful that they'd piqued my interest in this topic. And Emile Henry is the company that I went for. So very nice. It's got this kind of undulating set of ridges that go underneath, allows the hot air to go under, make sure that hot air hits your pizza. Here you'll see I'm turning the fan oven on full, whacking the temperature clockwise around to the full. I think it can go up to 450 or something, this oven. The pizza stone always goes into the oven when it's cold. You don't want to add a cold pizza stone to a piping hot oven because I think there's risk of cracking. So that went in there for 1 hour before I start to cook pizza on it. Always got the best results with that approach. My daughter doing some great work, videoing me, not bad for a 5-year-old. Look at this, I haven't got the right equipment still. Okay, I've got the peel, but hard to get out. This is looking like a semi-decent Napolitana style pizza that's made in a home oven. Yeah, there's no leopard spotting on it really to talk about, but it's risen at the edges. It's obviously got some air in there. It's got some nice colours. That buffalo mozzarella has melted nicely, melded in with the dried mozzarella. There's a crunch to this. It annoys me now looking at it that I didn't have a pizza cutter, which I should have been using. Cutting it like that with a knife just looks wrong now, but when you don't have all the tools, you use what you have, and it did the job. Did the job very well, actually, to be fair. So this was probably about 3 months into my pizza making escapades. Got my own pizza stone of a good quality, and I was making my first pizza on that pizza stone, and I think I really did notice the difference, actually. Yeah, when you start spending a bit of money on good quality products, it can up the game quite quickly, I must say. I think it was around this time that you can see, look, bubbling inside the crust. Decent, undercooked a bit, not enough colour on the bottom, or on the pizza in general, on the dough, but alright. This was from a batch within the same week. Again, undercooked, but I remember I had an ongoing paranoia that because I was putting the pizza in the oven for 4 minutes to cook, I just felt that was too long. And it was going to burn. Little do I know now that it would have actually been fine. This is interesting. I'm just plonking that basil on in a very haphazard way. These days I'm much more aesthetic about how I place the basil or the toppings on the pizza. Again, just something you get better at, just getting an eye for it, understanding that it looks nicer if the basil is leaf side up, if it's placed in a kind of symmetrical or pattern. And yeah, just those little changes make the difference. I know at this point as well, I was distinctly aware of the fact that there was some, I had become aware that there was some home pizza making specific ovens on the market, which were rather enticing. I'd heard about the Gozney and the Ooni and the Outi pizza ovens, and I was watching a lot of videos on YouTube showing the output, and I was like, wow, you really can make a restaurant quality pizza because the temperature of those things gets so hot. So yeah, I was happy making pizza in the oven at home, but it already kind of set a seed in my mind that I needed to explore how to get hold of one of these pizza ovens. And look, this was, when was this? Kind of Q3, early summer 2021. And there was a big demand for these kind of things. A lot of people were at home cooking and ordering such things for home cooking, and there was a run on them. There was a lack of supply compared to demand. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was hard to get them, so I had to start putting the feelers out and working out how to get hold of one. And yeah, the rest is history, really. You'll see when that change happens. But suffice to say, I knew relatively early on that I was passionate enough about this to start looking for a proper home pizza oven. But I think you'll agree that in the relatively short space of time between that first pizza I showed you that I cooked at home, there's some improvement there. Let's say in 2.5, 3 months, I'm going from, badly formed, uneven, undercooked pizzas to still a bit undercooked, but certainly something that you would be fairly happy and proud to share with friends and family. And certainly people would call it a pizza rather than an abomination. And yeah, at this point I'm fairly happy with my progress, but knowing I need to do a lot more. So, just out of interest, I wanted to show you what my dough was looking at this point. Very, very active dough balls. They're big, they've blown up a lot. To date, I've never done more than a 24-hour proof. What I do is I basically put them in the fridge for 20 hours and a couple of hours either side of that have them room temperature. Too much yeast, basically. Here's how I'm making the sauce still. Olive oil, garlic, tomatoes go in. Yes, I'm using Outi because I just think they produce a wonderful flavour. But I'm cooking them. Unnecessary these days, if you ask me. Here's those pizza balls again. The problem I had with them being this big and overblown, as you might say, overinflated, is basically that it makes them difficult to work with. They're quite hard to launch. I've got into the habit now at this point of putting a dash of olive oil on my hands, olive oil acting as lubricant to make sure that they don't get stuck to your hands. Not really that necessary if you're not having an overinflated dough ball, but at the point I did. And no, I think I still do actually put olive oil on my hands to help with that to this day, to be fair. On goes I'm putting a bit of semolina flour on the cutting board to land the dough ball, which basically will again help it be less sticky on the peel. Basically, I was getting quite a lot of sticking on the peel when I was launching it. It was not coming off in a way that I wanted. So now you're about to see a classic example of not having the right tools for the job. So when I was young, my father always told me, always use the right tool for the job, otherwise it ain't going to go very well. And here you can see I've got a overinflated dough ball, 3 of them, in a glass baking tray, and I'm going to attempt to get them out with a knife. Normal kitchen knife. Now that is not a wise move. The honest answer here is that I was looking for a soft plastic or rubber spatula and could not find one for the life of me. Again, I don't know if it was a supply and demand issue, but yeah, it was highly frustrating. I had a metal spatula, but a metal spatula wouldn't have been much better. So I was just using a knife to kind of cut through it. Obviously, you can see the ramifications of that. The dough ball is getting all scrunched up, losing its shape. Again, massively overactive, big bubbles coming out because there's so much yeast in there. And fundamentally, I've got a handful. I've got a challenge in my hands because I'm trying to land the dough ball on the semolina flour in a way in which it's flat. I'm trying to now make it rounder as it goes on. It's not ideal. You don't really want to be shaping your pizza ball when it comes out, when you're about to make the actual pizza itself. It should come out in the right shape. And you can see I've got those kind of holes now because I'd had to remold the shape. What that means is that you're likely to get an uneven pizza. You might develop some holes in the bottom, and yeah, it's just not ideal. Again, part of the learning process, and the fact I'm landing it here in semolina flour, I went through this habit for quite some time. I think it's a good way of doing it in some ways, but also you do get a very semolina-y pizza, which can actually be a little bit like dusty and sandy. Not quite sure the best way of doing it. Yeah, there's pros and cons of using that semolina flour. Now I'm using just normal Tipo 00 flour to land them in. But you can see here, the actual dough itself has got a nice consistency to it. It's bouncing back nicely. Obviously there's a lot of air in there because it's so inflated. But it's not ideal. It should be a little bit easier to stretch, but you'll see the results of this are not bad at all. And at this point I was making relatively consistently good pizza in terms of the dough, but it was just, there was something lacking, and I was still focusing on trying to find out what that was, a lot of research. I couldn't work it out for the life of me. So yeah, that approach I'm describing there isn't what I use these days, really. I might do a bit of that. But yeah, now I kind of hang the pizza dough off the back of my knuckles and have it touching the kitchen top so it doesn't stretch too much. But you know, this is working okay. I'll be honest, I still haven't got my technique down on this element of it. But generally I get round pizzas, which are the right size and don't have too many holes in them. In fact, I don't really have holes in them that much at all these days. So yeah, you can see it's doing the job. You can see the pizza's stretching as I do that, and it's maintaining its roundness, and it's still got the air in the crust. It's taken quite a long time, but one of the things which I have noticed is not trying to recreate the timings that a professional pizza maker does for making their pizzas. Yes, they might be able to go from a dough ball to a fully topped pizza ready to be launched within about 30 seconds. If you try and recreate that as a relative novice like me, that isn't going to turn out very pretty. So just slow down a bit. That's the mantra I give myself now, and it seems to work. You get faster over time naturally. But as the old adage goes, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I think here you can see the pizza's starting to get too stretched. There's a risk of a hole in it, and yeah, this isn't going to be ideal in terms of the consistency of depth of the pizza base, I say. Again, still cooking my sauce. Waste of time, unnecessary, doesn't taste as good. On it goes. You see it's steaming there, it's hot. Don't need to do that. It can go on the pizza cold and be cooked with the pizza in the oven. The application of the sauce is getting a little bit better here. And on goes the pre-grated Parmigiano. From the start, I've been using the best quality ingredients that I can get my hands on without too much effort. And Parmigiano is always something, if you're willing to pay a little bit more money, you can get it. And I think it makes a difference because the quality of that proper Regano, it just adds depth to the flavor of the pizza, which is unquantifiable. So yeah, it's an important foundation. I always do that. The things I don't really scrimp on in terms of the quality of the ingredients is the water actually for the dough. I always use Italian mineral water wherever possible. I always use my favorite pizza flour, which is the Caputo Pizzeria Tipo 00. I always use good quality yeast when I can find it. And salt, I started recently to use the Italian sea salt made by Campisi, and I think that's important as well. They're the areas where I think if you do it right with the products, it does make a difference. Here you can see it's an exciting day because I had my Bosca pizza cutting board and the pizza cutter. I was for a long time trying to decide which ones to get, and there's something about these that are just quality. I've used them every single time since and are very happy with the results. That pizza cutter is sharp and effective. The pizza board is nice and solid, got a good weight to it. Will last probably as long as I live, to be honest, because of the quality ingredients that it has. And yeah, I was very happy on this day to be having a proper set of instruments to cut my pizza. And here we are. There is the pizza, smouldering nicely, bubbles still bubbling, undercooked at one side, a little bit of leopard spotting on the other side. I remember being quite obsessed with leopard spotting at one point and being a bit bemused as to why I couldn't get it across my pizza as a whole. Then I realised basically if you're making pizza in the oven at home, it's nigh on impossible to get leopard spotting because, I mean, this is my personal belief, but I think the leopard spotting is really a result of the carbonization from the flame interacting with the surface of the pizza crust. Hadn't took the sticker off the pizza cutter at this time. Maybe I was too excited to use it and couldn't be bothered to go through that rigmarole at the time. It looks a bit silly as I see it now, but suffice to say it's not on there anymore. I think that's looking like a pretty handsome pizza. And yeah, this is where I think I'm starting to step it up a notch at this point. About 3 months into my pizza making, and definitely increasingly happy with that. You can see a fair amount of air in the dough. And you can just tell, these days I can tell when a pizza looks good and will taste good. And this is one of those. There's nothing suggesting that that pizza won't be really, really delicious. Obviously could have done with more time in the oven. We can all see that. Underside is a bit anemic. But hey, it's a lot better than previous attempts. And as long as I'm making progress, I'm happy in this world. Here's another example. I think from the same batch actually. And this is where I was starting to experiment with toppings. So I was keeping it pretty simple in terms of toppings, just because my focus is on the quality of the pizza itself. Here I start to branch out a bit. I'm getting a little bit more confidence. So as well as it being a classic margherita with my homemade basil, it looks small but actually packs a punch. I'm really happy with it. Now I'm starting to add some prosciutto on there. And if you ask me, a Napolitana style pizza with prosciutto and a bit of buffalo mozzarella is one of the best out there. So I think this was quite an exciting one for me to start to see, the full potential of what I could be delivering. And I remember this one distinctly being really, really tasty, and now I was very, very happy with it. Yes, you hear that noise? That kind of ripping sound. That's the crunch mixed with the soft. That's what we're after. We're very, very pleased with the pizza cutter, by the way. Let's have a look inside this. Lovely bit of bubbling inside. I think that looks like a rather fantastic pizza. Let's taste it. And here I just wanted to give a sped up version of where I was at, about 5 months into this process, 4.5, 5 months in terms of how I was treating the dough, moving it around, getting on the peel for launch. A little bit more confidence, less tentative, but you can see it's not exactly a round pizza. Part of that is because I haven't actually made the dough ball in a way that means I can get it out round again. Too much yeast, I sound like a broken record. But I think it's important to see that even though I was making those mistakes, there was still good pizzas coming out of it. And that's one of the messages I want to bring across in this video, is that when you go through the learning process of making good pizzas and you're still making mistakes, the great thing is you still got quality outputs. You can still eat them, people still enjoy them, they still taste good. So don't overthink it too much, don't panic, don't rush, don't beat yourself up if things aren't perfect. Just keep on consistently trying, and every single time you will make improvements. Trust me, that's exactly how it's worked for me, and I love that part of it. I'm very pleased that I didn't start off as a particularly great pizza maker, because I've been able to see that self-development and self-improvement during that period, and it's very satisfying, adding that string to your bow. And yeah, I just hope that message is clear. You're not going to make perfect pizzas from the start, and there's nothing that's wrong with that. So some pizzas you're very proud of. Some pizzas are learning pizzas, what I call it. This is a learning pizza because, as you can see, something went wrong. And what went wrong is that I forgot a critical factor in the preparation of this. I didn't put the semolina flour on this pizza shovel. What that meant is, when I went to shovel the pizza into the oven, it actually got stuck a bit, and I had to wrestle with it as it went in, then released it, and it got stretched. So this bit was towards the front, this was towards the back, and it's elongated. So, really glad this happened, because it means that in the future it won't happen again. I will never forget to get the semolina flour in here, which essentially lubricates the pizza shovel or paddle and stops that happening. So I'll interrupt my past self there. So I think you get the message here. This was about 4 months in. I'm getting more confident with making my pizzas, but getting a bit more confidence means you get a bit more bold. You start to make maybe a few more mistakes because you're not overthinking it. And yeah, it was a good tasting pizza, but made a silly mistake, not putting any flour on the pizza peel. I was calling it the shovel there, which is an indication that I still didn't know what the different paraphernalia were called. But yes, the pizza peel was not floured, and therefore the launch didn't go well. It got stuck, and I got a strange looking pizza. Anyway, tasted great, was happy with it, and yeah, a learning experience, as all these are. So I think you can see the ongoing theme here. Massively overinflated dough balls. Still doing the same thing 4 months in. I was doing this last month. Too much yeast. The room temperature, even fridge temperature, they were blowing up like that. I didn't really know it was incorrect. And some would say it's not incorrect actually. But it's just unnecessarily overinflated. You can see that the cling film is actually puffed up because of the chemical process has created so much oxygen. It's bulged it up. There's got a convex top there, and yeah, just too much yeast. Lesson learned for everyone. I wish I'd seen a video like this when I was at this stage, which told me don't use too much yeast. Just use about half a gram if you're using roughly 800 to 900, 1,000 grams of flour. A lot of recipes tell you to use too much yeast. And yeah, here's a nice garlic bread I made. It was too garlicky actually. It was still nice. I would argue that there isn't too much such a thing as too much garlic, but this was very nice. It was mixed with herbs and garlic, butter, and bianco. So that means there's no tomato sauce on it. And I remember this being a pretty cool, my first kind of diversion from a pure pizza to a garlic bread, and I was happy with it. It's a good starter to a meal. You can see the crust there is pretty thin, got a nice element of crispiness to it, and the coloration is nice as well. I'm still cooking it in the home oven. So yeah, we're around the 4.5 month mark now. You can see same batch as the garlic bread, but the pizza itself, the margherita. It's looking nicely cooked. I'm starting to give it a bit more time in the home oven. I think it looks nice, but you can still see it's a home cooked pizza. It's got that roundness to the edges and the crust, which is unmistakable in my opinion. And yeah, I'm fast approaching a need to get a specific specific specialized home pizza oven. So interesting development here. This is about 5 months in. I'm starting to get my head around the fact I need less yeast in my dough. So what I have done here is got some slightly more manageable dough. As a result of that, look, that's how a pizza dough ball should look like when you're about to use it. You see the pizza is looking a little bit easier to manage and maintain in shape. It's circular. I haven't had to wrestle it, and it's pretty much a indicator to me that, oh right, I've been using too much yeast in the past. I need to dial it down. I can't say that it clicked immediately here. It took a bit longer. I was a little bit inconsistent with how much yeast I put in, because I was basically believing and taking at face value the recipes that I saw and kind of trusted the recipes as one would. But yeah, something was starting to click here, that the dough works without too much yeast. And don't be paranoid, it'll still go through the process, it'll still create the glutinous element. And you know, don't be overzealous with that yeast. And here's another development. You can see I've done a nice bit of the mozzarella there. It's not buffalo mozzarella, but it's decent quality Italian mozzarella, and I've let it drain properly so it's not too watery. It's sat there without puddling on the top of the pizza, which is an important breakthrough. And I'm about to show you what that pizza looked like in the flesh after it's been cooked, again in the home oven. So I'm still in the process of using a pizza stone. There you go, a little bit more colour to it on the edges, giving a little bit more time, probably approaching 4.5 to 5 minutes cooking in there at about, I don't know exactly how hot it was, but let's say 400 degrees Celsius. And yeah, at this point, I think I kind of felt I was maxing my capability within the home pizza oven, getting a bit frustrated that I couldn't get the other results that I want. Again, if you look at the first pizza I made versus this, it's a whole different ball game. My daughter absolutely loving it, and yeah, at this point I know that I need to move onwards and upwards in terms of how I'm cooking these things if I'm going to significantly improve the quality of the pizza now. Just showing you a little bit of a side profile. You know, decent, thin, crispy, getting a bit artistic with the slow motion video it seems. But yeah, a respectable pizza. Definitely tasted good. At this point though, I was more after that je ne sais quoi, the aesthetic elements that you get when you start cooking them at a higher temperature in a custom made oven. To prove I didn't learn my lesson immediately with the yeast from that last batch, this is the very next batch. You can see here it is overly blown up again, overly developed. Disappointing. But what you notice here is I'm starting to use sauce that is not cooked. This is straight one tin with some Italian sea salt, fine Italian sea salt, blended very briefly and taking it cold onto the pizza. That's a breakthrough, that's a milestone, that's why I included this in my in this evolution video, because it is an important milestone. A little bit too much olive oil on the top, what you could argue. But, you know, I'm still not 100% understanding what value that olive oil really adds to a pizza. I want to do a comparison where I do a pizza with 0 olive oil and one with olive oil on top and in the dough, and see what difference it really makes. I'm still not completely convinced, but yeah, an experiment is the only way to prove it, really. Look at this. Beautiful. Now the difference with this one, which I wasn't expecting, is I forgot to put olive oil on it. You just sometimes forget the basics. Look, I'll put some on now. I must say the coloration on this is I'm very happy with, and this. So I'll repeat, this is 65% hydration. Shape isn't great, but I really think I'm getting there in terms of the consistency of the dough. It's in that crunch. This is what lack of confidence does. Absolutely mashed. You know, there's a saying in the old flying world, people in flying World War II fighter planes and things, that says there's the people who have landed with their wheels up, and there's the people who will land with their wheels up. And I feel this is kind of quite a good analogy. There's the people who will cook a pizza that hasn't had enough fermentation, and the people that have cooked a pizza that hasn't had a fermentation. It's part of the process, part of learning, and everyone's got to do it. This is my time. You know, it's going to go on a little bit longer. That is not yet. So you could probably sense my anticipation and delight when this thing arrived. I finally got hold of an Ooni Koda 16. This is a gas-powered 16-inch pizza oven. It's got the flames set at the back and on the left-hand side. It gets up to, and probably above 500 degrees C. First pizza from that oven was this, and I immediately knew that I was dealing with something completely different. Look at the lightness and the crispness of the pizzas that come out of that. This is literally the first pizza I made with it. Absolutely delighted. Realized that yes, leopard spotting is a result of the carbon forming when the pizza goes in there. Of course, just because you have a Ooni or a Gozney or a Outi pizza oven doesn't mean that you're suddenly an expert pizza maker. Mistakes will still be made. In fact, I probably made more mistakes because of that. Look how quick this forms. You have to be very careful to make sure that you're balancing the pizza stone heat. Don't let it get too hot. Make sure it gets at a decent temperature. Burning can happen if you get too close to the flame. I normally now heat it up on full temperature or full flame for 20 minutes and turn it down to minimum flame for the first pizza cook. And then between pizzas I'll put the flame back up to get the stone up to full temperature. I got myself the Ooni Infra Red Thermometer to help with this. I try and keep the center of the pizza stone about 430 degrees Celsius before I'm about to cook a pizza. But yeah, I mean, suffice to say, as soon as you start cooking with one of these things, it's a game changer. And you have to up your attention to the cooking process. Obviously, when you're cooking it at home in the oven, it is relatively easy. You put it in there, it can't really go too wrong as long as the pizza's got some good fundamental dough in it. Here, you can mess up your pizza if you're not careful. You can destroy it with burning, and So this is the second pizza I ever made on the Ooni. Yes, it got a bit charred in places, but it was absolutely delicious. I thought it was wonderful. I was so happy. I am so happy with this oven, the Ooni Koda 16. I've now got the peel from Ooni to help move it around, and I've got that technique kind of fairly good. And yeah, so now I'm starting to ramp it up, get very excited, still make many mistakes, don't get me wrong, but the quality of the pizzas coming out is another level. And of course, the new oven means that you get a little bit more confidence. You start to add extra toppings. It's just a really delightful milestone and you really feel like you can make pizzas with a pride and give them to people, and it knocks their socks off, for want of a better term. So, yeah, I set about as soon as the uni arrived. I was probably, and I'm still probably cooking on it 2 to 3 times a week. Dough is always proofing in the fridge. That's why the Ooni Stack's very good, because it allows you to keep your dough balls stacked up vertically in the fridge, not take up too much real estate. You can see here I'm putting a little bit too much toppings on. This is overkill, I'd suggest. Fungi and salami and basil and mozzarella. However, you know, it tasted damn good, and I was just very excited, and I'll show you what happened to it. Here you go. That's what an uni does to a pizza like that. A little bit overcooked on one side, but honestly it was delicious. I had some chili oil on it as well. It's just such a satisfying feeling when you bring something out of the oven and it's got that, because of the heat that comes off those ovens, it makes the smell of them just so much more pungent and fills the room, and just a great feeling. You can see it's really doughy but crispy. Love it. But of course, there also is disasters. Here I have to put in when things go bad, like you can see that I've made a dough that was a little bit overly fermented again, too much yeast again, got stuck on the launch, got burnt on the side, stuck to the bottom of the pizza stone, bit of a kerfuffle, couldn't get it off. Pretty annoyed with myself about it. But again, I learned that you have to make sure that you're using a consistent dough approach, and that you're making sure it's going to move off the launch, the peel nicely for the launch. Again, issues with the launch, getting pizzas that taste great, but pizzas that don't look great because they're not staying around when I got them on there. Now that I'm using less yeast, the dough is staying more consistent in shape. But yeah, I mean, this was still a great tasting pizza, and I was very happy with it. So here's a pure margarita, last pizza of the day. It's actually running very nicely. Easiest of the 3 to put together for some reason. Not sure quite why, because all of them had the same dough and issue with the fact that we're too long in room temperature. The oven could probably do with a little bit more heat, to be honest, but that's okay. Just give it longer. I seem to be getting the hang of the uni. It's only the 3rd or 4th time I've cooked with it, but I'm starting to see. So as you heard, this is the 3rd or 4th time I'd cooked with the uni, and I'd made some mistakes. I'd made some great pizza, but fundamentally this is where you go through the process of learning about judging the temperature, balancing the right temperature of the stone, how much flame to have exposed, and I would argue here that the flame is quite low, and therefore I should have had it a little bit higher, or at least had the temperature a bit higher. I don't think I had the infrared thermometer at this point, so the stone was probably sub 400 degrees Celsius in the center, so it's not rising as quickly as it necessarily should have been for Napolitana style. But honestly, with these ovens, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, simply because they still make a great tasting pizza. And I'm coming to the end of this cook. Because it's a little bit lower temperature, it will take a little bit more than 2 minutes, I believe, to cook this one. This is probably going to take 2 hours, 2 minutes 20 seconds, 2 minutes 30 seconds, but it's looking great. I mean, you can tell that is going to taste good. That is a tasty product to eat. Doesn't look fantastic, but certainly there's going to be some happy people at the dining table when that is landed. Topping it with some good quality homegrown basil. Always nice to give it those nice finishing touches. See, I'm starting to get a little bit more refined in terms of the placing of the basil, for example. Starting to understand what people look for aesthetically in the pizza rather than just the taste, which is very important. Now, I am aware this isn't the fresh ideal mozzarella that you want. You know, it's pre-grated. Therefore, I know there's some things that they do to stop it from caking, which means it's not ideal. But however, needs must. If you want to make pizza and you can't find the ideal fresh mozzarella, you're still going to make pizza. So on it goes. Then I'm feeling quite confident about this. Famous last words, but I'm feeling quite confident about this pizza. It's looking like it's a good consistency of dough. It's looking like I haven't forgotten anything or done anything stupid. I haven't stretched it too thin. And therefore, I think it might be a pretty good pizza. Let's take a look. Get it in the oven. Just get rid of that oil here because the oil as I drag it across could make it a little bit sticky at the bottom, which is not ideal because historically for me, one of the problems I have is every now and again I get a pizza that sticks to the peel. Yeah, I think the size is good. It really hasn't needed much stretching at all, this pizza. It's really stretched itself, which is a sign of the kind of dough that I like. Now this is pizza number 3, fresh out the oven. I'm not eating this one today, so this one's going to be saved. Classic margherita, really nice crust, feels light, airy, but crunchy. Happy with that. So I think they got progressively better, to be honest. This one's cooked best in a most consistent fashion around the outside. We're good. Enjoyed this session. Cheers, guys. This is the kind of summarising the last couple of months. Now I've got the hang of the Ooni. I've got, he says, dropping his dough. I've got the hang of the Ooni. I've got the hang of the process of cooking with it to a large degree. I'm getting better at shaping and launching the pizza. I understand how much yeast to use in my dough. Now I'm at the point where I'm making consistently good pizza, I'd say. I'm almost always happy with it, and I haven't had a major disaster for some time. Nothing left it right now. Freshly grated Parmigiano. Mozzarella. Buffalo. This is really good quality stuff. I hope my daughter appreciates it. Oven goes up. check for movement on the plate, on the peel. Looks good. Let's take a quick look. Yep, happy. A little bit of basil. And yeah, the next few images are basically just showing where I started to get that level of consistency, shape, colour, a little bit of leopard spotting, refinement of placing the toppings, some burrata on there. That was with some caramelized onion. I even ventured out to do like a dessert-based pizza, which it was okay. I'll not be spending too much time doing those in the future. But yeah, just quality margaritas, just churning out the fundamentals and getting better and better at using that oven to create the classic pizzas. And you can just see it's a real evolution from the start to now. This has been about 6.5 months at this point. Lovely leopard spotting on this one. You can see that semolina flour kind of mottled around the edges. Some lovely big bubbles coming through. It's fair to say that I'm getting results at this point which I never thought I'd be able to get. Here was some smoked ham and olive, the underside nice and coloured but not burnt. Quite a lot of charring leopard spotting on the edge of that one. As I say, still not making perfect pizzas every time yet, but not bad at all. And of course, when you start getting those quality tasting looking pizzas, you can start to play with the aesthetics a bit more, those lashings of basil that I really love, symmetrical toppings, getting just some nice photographs of great looking pizza. So it was the intention to make this a Presola and yellow cherry tomato pizza. So here we go, I'm just going to make some fresh Presola here. On it goes. It's good quality Italian Presola I have here. Very happy with that. Let's take a look. I can tell that smoked pork is definitely cooked in there. The lard's crystallized. The chili garlic is been cooking in that olive oil. Looking forward to taste this one. So this is with the less yeast, 65% hydration. I think you'll agree it looks rather good. Let's have a look underneath. Very nice. So I think as we come to the culmination of this video, I'm sure you get the message, which is that getting to a point where you're making consistently good pizza takes time, effort, and practice, and a lot of mistakes. I have made in the region of 300 pizzas now, maybe 400, and along the way, they've always been tasty, but there's been some disasters. But now, yeah, they're consistently good. I hope you can take away some value from this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you have. And yeah, I'm going to make more of this content. I really enjoy producing it and talking to you in the comments. Thank you very much. Take care.